Originally wears the game of baseball around his neck. 1993 had it all. A storybook ending for one team, a painful ending for one of the greatest pitchers of all time.
The 1993 season reminded us that baseball is as great as it ever was, as long as it's being played on the field. The problem comes when the people who own the sport start playing their board games. It ended as no season had ever ended, with a come-from-behind homer by Joe Carter deciding a wild and wonderful World Series, making Toronto the first team to defend its world title since the 77-78 Yankees. It seemingly had everything. Paul Molitor's magnificence, Robbie Alomar's unrivaled brilliance, Lenny Dykstra's gall, Curt Schilling's heart, and Mitch Williams' disappointment. Most of all, it had baseball at its extremes. The Jays came from 5 runs down in the 8th inning to win the 4th game 15-14. Then, less than 24 hours later, Schilling reproved that baseball truth. Momentum is tomorrow's starting pitcher with a gut-wrenching 148-pitch, 2-0 shutout in Game 5. As it was a season of light, so it was a season of darkness. In March, on a small lake in central Florida, a boating accident claimed the lives of Indians pitchers Steve Olin and Tim Cruz and left Bobby Ojeda physically and psychologically scarred. That weren't enough for the young Cleveland players. Pitcher Cliff Young died in an automobile accident after the season. The game suddenly lost the great Don Drysdale, as well as Hall of Famers Roy Campanella and Johnny Mize. We may have had what might be the last great pennant race.
There is no underplaying the importance of this, especially for the Giants. Patterson rips the ball to right. Back it goes. Back. Gone! I don't believe it!
When he was traded on July 20th, McGriff went from the fire sale into the fire, literally and figuratively. The Braves, 10 back on July 22nd, dogged and caught the Giants for a Grand Prix duel to the final day when San Francisco, after winning 103 games, finally staggered, and Atlanta won its 3rd straight National League West title. So, too, the Braves were evidently exhausted from their great race and were beaten in a 6-game playoff by the heroics of Dykstra, John Kruk, Curt Schilling, and the Phillies' whole Rolling Thunder review. Toronto's cavalcade of stars eventually won the American League. In the playoffs, it took a 6 RBI, 7-run performance by Molitor, 12 hits by Devon White, and 2 straight-from-the-heart performances from Dave Stewart for the Jays to hold off Frank Thomas and the White Sox, who were upstage when Jerry Reinsdorf opened the postseason by reminding his players of his priorities. But only in comparison to Michael Jordan did the White Sox pale. Thomas, the 25-year-old MVP who had 41 homers, 128 RBI, and 108 runs, and Cy Young Award winner Jack McDowell were typical of the sports generation of young star players. Not that Barry Bonds or Greg Maddux is old, of course, but they reminded us that this is not simply a mercenary business. Bonds left the Pirates for the Giants and reiterated that he is the best of his generation, winning his 3rd MVP in the 90s, batting .336, leading the league in homers and RBIs, slugging and on-base percentage, winning another Gold Glove, and uplifting an entire franchise. Maddux left the Cubs for the powerful Braves. He fit in like the guy next door and won his 2nd straight Cy Young Award. Junior Griffey, 23, homered in 8 consecutive games, finished the season with 45 homers and 109 RBIs, and is the heir apparent to Bonds. Juan Igor Gonzalez blasted 46 homers. John Olerud, 24, batted .363 with 107 RBIs. Alomar, 25, may again have been the best all-around player in the American League. Such young stars stepped forward to replace those Hall of Famers that preceded them, including a trio for whom 93 was the last hurrah. Nolan Ryan grabbed his elbow after 321 wins and 5,417 strikeouts. Carlton Fisk went home after catching more games than anyone ever had, and George Brett retired after leading the Royals in RBIs. As they departed, out on the coast, were 2 dazzling rookies, Mike Piazza with his 35 homers and 112 RBIs, and Tim Salmon with his 31 homers in classic right fielder's style. Oh, some may have forgotten when to use their heads and their arms, and sometimes, with the unselfish, reasoned exception of Bud Selig, it seems that the people who least appreciate baseball are those who run it, owners, who should by now realize that it's the players whose individual, competitive, and artistic skills made 1993 a season of light. This is Peter Gammons, ESPN.